Recently, I've noticed a bit of a resurgence in film. I'm not sure if you noticed, no one's really talking about it. Jokes aside, I absolutely love shooting film. I have a Zenit film camera. I picked it up about a year ago in a charity shop, and it is quite fun to use. But there's a few drawbacks to shooting film, right? You have to find somewhere that sells film, which in rural Ireland is quite difficult, particularly if you want a good variety of film. You have to find somewhere that develops film, again, quite difficult to do in rural Ireland. While it's a bit of a plus being limited to a certain number of exposures, sometimes you miss the shot. But there's a lot of pluses to film, right? Like the way it handles color, the way you get grain, those things are generally regarded as pluses. And Oppenheimer, quite a big movie recently, don't know if you heard about it, that was all shot on film. So people like the look of film, but some people don't like the drawbacks of film. Well, that's where this helps. Dehancer is a company that makes film emulation plugins, right? So plugins for Lightroom, Photoshop, Premiere, Final Cut, DaVinci. There's even an iOS app, right? This would give you all the benefits of digital photography. So like your high-speed burst mode, you're being able to take 5,000 photos on a single card, but you get the look of film. So in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to test Dehancer. Let's just jump in, and I suppose we'll start with this image here. So this is just a sculpture in the park. I should say actually, once you have installed the Dehancer plugin, make sure you go to external editing, and then for additional external editor, you want to make sure that you are choosing Dehancer Lightroom plugin. So what happens there is you just go to choose, and then you navigate to the plugin in your applications folder. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to go to edit in, and then to Dehancer. So I'm going to choose to edit a copy with any adjustments made in Lightroom. I've not made any adjustments, but just in case I had. You can edit a copy too, but you can't do that with RAW or DNGs. And you can edit the original, but you can't do that with RAW or DNGs. So after a while, it will open up. It might just be a bit slower than normal here because I am screen recording. But here's our image opened up in Dehancer. So this is the layout. It's fairly familiar to anyone that's used any actual photo editing software. You got a bunch of presets here on the left. You've got your more kind of granular controls there on the right. Maybe for this image, we'll just choose a preset, and then for the next one, we'll do more granular control, and you can get an idea of that. You can just click an image, and then you can see your preset. I find sometimes it takes a while, like the actual colors will load, and then the grain loads in like a second after. But it's been fairly snappy and responsive. So you can see you got all your different film here, Kodak, Ilford film, and there's even like Instax film emulations too if you want like that effect. So let's just scroll down and we'll choose a random one here. Let's go for Kodak Color Plus. So you can see it's added quite a bit of noise to our image. So if I just go up here to original, and I'll just use the undo, or in fact I can just choose the preview. So there's our original image. And there's it with this film emulation. So you can see it's essentially just warming up the image and adding a bit of grain. There's other filters that do a lot more, so they'll actually control like bloom and that kind of thing. This one here would be a good example of that. You can see the shine from the statues now like blooming out over a bit as the highlights from both these leaves. And I actually quite like that. So we're just going to press OK. And now we have a copy of our image in Lightroom. So if I click on that, that's image 2, that's image 1. Which is just handy for organization. So you still have your original file, but you also have this in Lightroom. And you can edit this just like you could any photo in Lightroom too. So I can come here and let's say bring the exposure down a bit. Just do auto and let Lightroom try its best. Pretty interesting, pretty cool. I do quite like this aspect of being able to mess with the color bloom and that kind of thing. I find a lot of film emulators, they'll just make the image a bit warmer, kind of less contrast, grain. Let's try another image. So I have this photo here from the back of a church. Let's work away. So I'm just going to right click on it, go to edit in, and then edit in Dehancer Lightroom plugin. Again, we're just going to be able to edit a copy because this is a RAW file, and then it opens up. My one actual complaint is that it always opens in like a little mini window. I'd rather just open in full screen by default. So you can see there's our last edits again. I don't know, there's just something about being able to browse different presets and see what it looks like that I quite like. And I find certain styles of image work best for this. So I've tried this with drone photos, and it works technically, right? I find with drone photography, it doesn't do a good job because, like, back in the day, there weren't many drones taking pictures with film, right? So, you know, just a pretty basic photo of a church, when you stick something like, I don't know, this on it, or maybe something a bit noisier like that, I'd actually believe that if that was in a documentary about this church and they had this picture in as if someone had just sent in the negative and they scanned it real bad or whatever, that looks fairly convincing. Anyway, we're going to go to original and actually go through these panels here on the right. So you can turn on. So you've got fairly basic controls here. So you got your exposure, and you can just double click and your values go back to the original. You've also got your temperature controls. You go all the way to blue, all the way to yellow. Actually, it's kind of cool, a bit warmer, so we might just make it a little bit warmer. You got your tint here, so that'll be your purple and your green, only really useful for like fluorescence. Defringe and defringe radius, all that kind of stuff. You can also turn on and off this whole section here with that little tick. Then you can control the developer that was used. And again, this is just more sort of like general kind of contrast controls. Think of that as your light, and that is your color in Lightroom. Then you've got your film compression, so this is going to affect your, but you can see actually as soon as I turn that on, if you look at that histogram, everything just kind of shifts a bit to the left because you want to reduce that dynamic range a bit, right? So you can mess with that a lot. Black points, you can do that, and then you lose that total black and use that total white. Maybe we'll go with that, kind of like a low contrast kind of thing. And then here you can change your print, so you can choose whether you want glossy paper, and all these kind of change it quite a bit as well. It reminds me a bit of Darktable, just having all these different controls to do kind of the same thing. Color head, you can mess with more stuff there, just kind of like your color mix. And then you have grain. So I'm going to mess with that a bit. Let's maybe make your grain slightly larger. Maybe slightly less grain. I actually quite like that with the more noise in the white. And then you can have your mode there for analog. Deletion and bloom are where you get that kind of light lead over effect I was on about. So just go to bloom, and it's not doing a whole lot. You can kind of see it a bit. Just kind of makes everything look slightly more washed out. And you got a vignette. So what I might do is, I just think that blue is slightly too vibrant. Color separation, sorry. Color boost, and bring that back quite a bit. And now we get this washed out, grainy, quite compressed if you look at where our blacks and our whites are, image. And if I go to view the original, you get quite granular control. So again, I press OK, and then I have it saved as a stack in Lightroom. So that's the Lightroom plugin. I think it's pretty useful. I kind of would prefer to keep all that stuff within Lightroom. Like if they actually just made Lightroom presets of all of these different film emulations. I know that's probably tricky because they've got a lot of stuff that's working inside there that's probably not the same as Lightroom, different tools, that grain thing in particular. So I can see why they wouldn't do that. But if they also included a few presets, so for like me who edits some of my stuff on my Android phone when I just have a bit of free time, I'd really like that. So you'll see when you open up the application, you greeted with this, and it's not the best looking like home screen in my opinion, right? So you've just got all your recent Apple Photos stuff there once you granted permission, and then you've got a reminder of when your subscription needs renewing, and then you've got open photo or video, and that's it. Think of other applications, right? Like Snapseed, Lightroom. Lightroom's kind of the gold standard, even on the iPad. I love using Lightroom on my iPad. So if you click open photo or video, you are able to open up your whole Apple Photos library and view these different folders and that here. So I have a bunch of raw files saved in my Apple Photos, so I'm just going to choose one of them. So for this, let's go for this one first. So this is a drone photo of an abandoned house near me. You can see it opens up with last edits. So I was saying before, the drone photos typically don't look really good with this, and I kind of think I really mean drone photos that are obviously drone photos. You know, this could just be a photo taken from somewhere high up, right? And to be honest, this is pretty much the Lightroom plugin as well. So I can go and choose a preset that's pretty extreme. That looks pretty vintage. Kind of that's CB effect. I kind of like the Fujifilm Instax. Maybe we'll go for like a black and white edit, or like that's phenotype. That's pretty nice as well. But if we want more granular control, we can just click edit and we get essentially the same controls that are in Lightroom. But the advantage here is that it's in your iPad or your iPhone. If you're the kind of person that takes a lot of pictures with your phone, then having this app would just be brilliant. So that's the iOS application, and for someone who edits a lot on their iPad, that seems pretty useful for me. So my workflow on the iPad is just the Lightroom cloud app, right? Like just Lightroom. But if I do my basic edits in that, I can then go and share that to Dehancer and just get my film emulation, and then I could even bring that back into Lightroom then so I can export it, or I could just save it and pop it up wherever then. So now there's the video side, right? But in Final Cut, you essentially have the exact same controls that you had in the other apps. It's as if they took the same presets and just ported them over to everything. And I like that because you might really like one specific film emulation and then decide, cool, I like this, gonna use it for this type of video going forward. So for like documentary stuff or that kind of thing where you're making like fake historical B-roll, brilliant. So I decided I'd test this plugin on a bunch of different types of footage that I would typically record. So I'm mainly stills, I don't shoot a lot of video, I shoot video for this channel, but I also occasionally will just do a few vloggy things for social media. So I have a DJI Mini 2, so I have some drone footage playing on the screen now and a few different film emulations on that so you get an idea. So I have an Insta 360 as well that I use as like a dash cam when I ride my scooter. So here's a few film emulations on that. I think for this in particular it looks a bit weird because the 360 footage in itself has like a distinctive look, so when you combine that film element with that, it doesn't work in my opinion. That's not a fault of Dehancer, that's just the type of footage I'm using it on. So the footage for this video here, this talking headpiece that you see me now, hello, is shot with my Panasonic Lumix G9. So what you're seeing now is not affected by Dehancer. This is just the log footage out of my camera. This is Rec 709, the sort of next step along before you color grade the footage. This is just kind of taking your raw image and turning it into a JPEG, so to speak, right? This is one type of film emulation. This is another. I haven't seen them yet. I hope they look good. So in conclusion, would I recommend Dehancer? Honestly, it depends. I enjoy shooting film for shooting film. In fact, my regular style when editing photos is quite the opposite of film. I quite like a really dramatic, kind of moody look that I don't think film captures very well. But if you like that sort of grainy old look, then I think Dehancer is worth having a look at, and probably even worth buying. Full disclosure, Dehancer gave me a year's worth of their software to try out, and I am part of their affiliate program right now. So if you use code Eli Farnhill, so ELIFARNHILL, at checkout, you get a discount. And I make a small commission on that, just to be transparent with you. They've not given me any talking points, they've not really told me what to say, short of just to be honest and give an honest review. And my honest review is Lightroom plugin is cool, but I wish it opened in full screen. I also don't like that you can't open a RAW or digital negative file direct from Lightroom. The iPad app, just when you initially go to open it for the first time, it looks like something someone's knocked up in 10 minutes. I wish it would just default to opening with your photos library as opposed to a little film strip. As for Final Cut, I think that works fine. I think like Final Cut plugins have a distinctive kind of look they have to adhere to anyway, which is with drop-down menus and that kind of thing, but it does that very well. And if I was like a documentary maker, or I really wanted to kind of make that kind of fake old look of footage, then I'd use this. Or if I was, let's say, working on a big budget thing that was shooting to film, but I couldn't, let's say, fit a film camera into a space and had to just stick something small there, then yeah, I can see that being a really good use for it too. So, like I said, if you use my promo code, which is on screen now, at checkout you get a discount and I make a small commission. That's as far as the transaction went. I think it's a really cool plugin, and the iPad app I'm going to keep on for as long as I have it. But yeah, thanks for making it this far into the video. If you liked the video, please give it a like, that does help. And if you want to see more stuff, subscribe. I've been not making videos for a while. I moved house and just a few things happened, but I think I'm ready to start my weekly uploads again. So cheers and thanks for watching.